think you'll really enjoy it. I've begun already by taking a 12 by 12 piece of basic white and a plate. I put a plate on it, which I then traced to form the circle background for my wreath. I'm going to begin by stamping one of the stamps from Beauty of Friendship in Pear Pizzazz ink around the circle for some texture. I'm being inspired this morning by a video I watched by Artful Stampin' with Ruth. She's in the UK and she makes the most beautiful wreaths and stamped designer paper that you can imagine. So we will copy what she's doing. This is Pear Pizzazz. We're just going to stamp that around the outside. One more in Pear Pizzazz, and then we're going to switch to something else. So from the same stamp set, Beauty of Friendship, we are going to take the naked tree and stamp that around the edges using Pear Pizzazz again. We won't ink up the entire trunk of the tree though, just a little bit, just to get the idea of some branch. Stamp it once. We'll stamp again without re-inking, and then we'll stamp yet a third time without re-inking. We will ink that again. Okay, we'll do that again in this blank area here. And we'll just keep going around the wreath, doing that. Lovely tree stamp. You'll notice that because I'm using the photopolymer stamp set, I do have my Stampin' Pierce mat below the paper. In fact, for this bigger piece, I am using 2 Stampin' Pierce mats. If you do get some ink on your Stampin' Pierce mat, you can just wipe that off with a wet cloth. One more time, and then we will switch again to a different image. There we go. We're finished with the tree image. So our last little bit here with the pear pizzazz is going to be from Forever Fern. I have chosen this little bit of foliage, and since this is a red rubber stamp, I have removed the Stampin' Pierce mats from below my project. And for a lot of the stamping that Ruth does, she tries not to get this stem into her project. So we will stamp it, we'll ink up the stamp, being careful not to include the stem, and then we're going to stamp that once and twice without re-inking, and we'll do that around the wreath so that we can get some foliage in here. And at first it might seem a little odd to stamp over stamping that you've already done, but you get used to it, and in the end it will be worth it because it will look so pretty. You could even stamp 3 times with this image without re-inking. And we'll just go along over here and add that in. We're moving right along today. This is going to be so pretty when it's finished. You'll be amazed. I've made a couple of projects now with using Ruth's technique here, and they've all turned out so pretty. One more. All right. We're still using our pear pizzazz. I think this might be our last little gathering of the foliage. Might just put another one here. I think that looks good. We'll be back in just another minute with our next image and ink color. So we're ready to move on to our next stamp set, which is Flowing Flowers. And I'm going to use Tahitian Tide. We're going to stamp this large flower from the flower set onto our project. We'll stamp once and twice. We might even stamp a third time just to get a little bit of image in there. Go along over to another area. Try again. And I think that looks great. We will come back again with another color in just a minute. Now we're going to work with the stamp set Tasteful Touches, and I have selected this flower. I am going to stamp that using Orchid Oasis ink. It's one of our beautiful new in colors for 22 to 24. take a look at how this looks on our project. This one I will stamp 3 times in each little section. I really like how that purple is adding some pizzazz to our project. Stamp once, twice, 3 times without re-inking. Let's do this again. Once, twice, 3 times, and one more cluster of these flowers. Once, twice, and 3rd time. That is looking marvelous, ladies. I hope you are enjoying this project as much as I am. We'll be right back. So we're back with our next flower, which is coming from an old retired set called Special Reason. I dug this out of my closet just for you. And we're going to use Bermuda Bay ink. And this little flower right here from my stamp set. Just look around through the stamp sets that you have, if you don't own this stamp set, and choose some that are similar. Grab some ink that you like and have at it. There's no right or wrong for this kind of a project. That's the thing I think I like the most about it, that plus the beautiful colors. Now, I just have to make sure that I can get this inked up and onto my paper, and let's see what we get. We are going to, ooh, that is bright. Ink it once, twice, 3 times. I think you're going to like it. Oops, sorry. I see I still have my Stampin' Pierce mats under here, even though I'm using a red rubber stamp. So let me just fix that so that my image is not falling off the edge here. All right, now we're back to stamping. This is going to be much better. Once, twice, 3 times. Once, twice, 3 times. Let's see, where shall we put it? I think maybe just a little bit out here. 3 times. And this looks like a nice spot right over here. Once, twice, 3 times. One last little bit. We will put that last one here. Once, twice, and 3 times. We'll be back in just a moment with the next stamp. We are back. For the last flower, I have chosen this one from the Quiet Meadow stamp set. It's already mounted on my block, and I'm going to try a nice technique that Ruth uses a lot, where she overstamps her flowers using a different flower. I'm going to try that with Coastal Cabana. We'll see how it goes. I've not tried this before, so we'll have fun trying it together. All right, we'll ink up our stamp. I think I will overstamp the flowing flowers that I originally stamped here with Tahitian Tide. We'll see how Coastal Cabana and Tahitian Tide mix. Ooh, I kind of like that. So I'm just going to do the one stamp at the center of the first generation Tahitian Tide flower here. Yeah, I might do another one over here. And then we'll go along to our next one. This is very pretty. Let's just try one here. I do like that. I think I may do it in the center of the Orchid Oasis as well. I think that looks great. You can't see it very well yet, but when I make the cards, after I cut up this cardstock, it will become more obvious. I stamp twice. I'm going to stamp in the center of the orchid flowers. Then move on, stamp in this. Oh, I'm already back to the beginning. Wow. I think I'll just stamp off with this one and then stamp it here. I think we're almost done. Just going to stamp off once. I didn't do in the center of the orchids here. Try again here. And I think we are finished with that color. It looks good. All right. We'll be back with our next color and image in just a moment. We are back. I did want to mention that while I have paused my video, I do clean and return my stamps to their cases so I don't get confused later and have a whole table full of stamps that I don't know where they go. All right, the next stamp set I'm going to be using is the Photopolymer Beautiful Friendship. This is retired, but it is gorgeous. I've taken the small triple leaf out of here, and I'm going to be using Parakeet Party, which is another one of our 22 to 24 in color selections. So we will stamp it up, or ink it up, I'm sorry. We're going to ink that up and start adding some leaves. I put my Stampin' Pierce mats behind my project again. So we will see how this goes. Just want to add a leaf. You can do first generation, second generation. If you feel it's necessary, you could stamp it again, third generation. I'm putting some of those on the outside. But I'm liking most of these on the inside. Just the third generation ones. I'm kind of putting a little shadow on the outside of the wreath using that third generation stamping. And again, if you don't have this stamp set, look around in your collection and find one that you like that has some leaves. And if you would like to contact me, you can leave me a comment or send me an email. I'll have that information down in the detail box below the video. I could help you. I could make some suggestions for leaves that you might use from different sets. The Forever Fern is a wonderful stamp set resource for leaves and foliage, and I recommend that one if you don't already own it. You could order from my website. Almost finished here. We're just coming down with a couple more of these, in Parakeet Party. I think we just need one more here, and it looks like it with the Parakeet Party leaves. I'll be back in just a moment. We are ready for our next stamp, which is going to be this lovely little sprig of foliage from Framed Occasions, which is one of the new stamp sets in the catalog. And I'm going to use Granny Apple Green for this. We are just going to do a little bit of fluffing out of the foliage on this. And again, this is photopolymer, so I have my Stampin' Pierce mats beneath me, beneath my projects. We will ink that up. Look for a place that needs a little help here. Stamp twice. And you will notice this really adds a lot of depth to the project. You want to be careful not to get it too close to your flowers. A little bit of overlap isn't going to hurt, but just a little. We will add some here. As you can see, I'm adding these little sprays on both the inside and the outside areas of the wreath. Stamping over some of that pear pizzazz as I feel the urge. Feel free to do whatever makes you feel happy. I think this is the first time I have stamped with this stamp set, so that's exciting. Sometimes I'll just stamp right over the Parakeet Party leaves. That just adds a little depth to them as well. Ruth has a background of flower arranging, so she has a lot of great tips for how to make your finished project look like an actual bouquet of flowers rather than just a hodgepodge of stamping. And if you watch a couple of her videos, you'll see that it's not very difficult to do. I'm getting quite fond of this technique, and I highly recommend it. This time I'm just going out from the parakeet to add a little extension to them. And we're almost done. think that'll do. All right. I'll be back in just a moment with our next image. Okay, it's time for a little dottage, which means a little spray of dots. Sometimes it's a smaller one like the one here in Beauty of Friendship. Sometimes it's a long one. Sometimes it's more of a splotch. But I have chosen the small one, mounted it on my clear block, and I'm going to be using Starry Sky. And I'm just going to overstamp in the centers of our Bermuda Bay flowers to get some depth to the center of those. And we will get going. You will be amazed how much this adds to the flowers. I am always amazed. And you just stamp or ink that up with Starry Sky. And again, you'll stamp the first one full strength in the center of the flower, then stamp off once onto the second flower, and then lastly you'll stamp the third flower. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it does add centers to these flowers. So we'll just do that all around our wreath with the Bermuda Bay flower groupings and see what that looks like. I remember the first time I saw Ruth do this, where she added a center with a different stamp set, and I was just so amazed at how much beauty that added to the flower. And it's just a quick and easy way to add some depth to your wreath. So one of the things I like about the photopolymer stamps is that you can see through them so that you know where you're going to be stamping. There, I'm all finished. I'll be back in a moment with another image. We are going back to the Framed Occasions stamp set now, and I'm going to use this long, thin spray of leaves. I think we'll use Starry Sky as the color, and it is photopolymer, so I have my Stampin' Pierce mats in place. And we will just overstamp some of these tree areas that seem to be hanging out on their own. We'll see how that looks with a little spray of leaves. Yes, I think that looks much better. We will go along the outside of the wreath and just kind of cover up some of these darker green areas that may not be adding a lot of oomph to our project. So here I'm also going to overstamp on this little tree from Beauty of Friendship so that we can just see that it blends more into the wreath. And again, there is no right or wrong to this whole process, so whatever you decide to do is just fine. I am really enjoying this part, and I wasn't sure if I would like the Starry Sky here, but it really does add something to the project. And I have seen Ruth stamp over the top edge of a spray like this so that it looks like it continues on. See how that looks like a really long branch there? So that's a fun tip. And you'll notice that sometimes I'm stamping twice and sometimes I'm stamping 3 times. Just depends on what I feel like in that particular area of the wreath. I think we'll do one more set. I think I just need one more. You can never have too many, right? I know I said one, but I'm going to go with 2. There. I'll be back in just a minute with the next image. The next one comes from Very Vintage, which is a retired stamp set. And I have chosen the Bumblebee from this. And I'm going to stamp that in Smoky Slate. And we'll see what happens. Ruth doesn't do this on her project, but that's the loveliness of having my own project, is I can put whatever I like on it. So we'll just see how that little bumblebee works with the wreath. I'm not going to stamp it more than once in each location because I feel like that would be unnecessary. But we will add it in a variety of places just so that we can have the bee appear on the cards after we cut up this paper. I know it's going to be hard to cut it up because it looks so beautiful. But when you cut it up and then you make cards with it, it's amazing. So here's a bee sitting on one of my flowers. And that's what you'll learn to do as you go through this process more than once, is start thinking, how will this look after I cut it up? Where will these images be on my cards? And we'll talk about that again another time. I like these little bees. I think Smoky Slate was just the right color for them. They're not overwhelming, but they are visible. Excuse the thunder in the background. I hope you haven't been too bothered by that today. I decided it would be a lot more fun to stamp with you than it would be to go to the grocery store in a thunderstorm. So here I am. I hope it's nice where you are. If you're having storms, sorry about that. I hope it wasn't some overflow from my part of the world. I'm in central Wisconsin in the United States. Now, if you don't like bees, you could put on dragonflies or butterflies or just another flower if you feel like you need to fill up some of these little spaces. I think maybe on the next one that I create, I will put on some dragonflies. It's been quite a while since I've stamped some dragonflies, and I always like how they turn out. I think we're almost finished with our bees. Okay, the last step is coming up. Stick with me. So the last piece of stamping we're going to do today is some dottage. Again, that is the spray of dots and splotches that you'll find in certain stamp sets. I got this one from Quiet Meadow, and I'm going to try stamping that in Soft Succulent. The first time that Ruth did this, I was really surprised. I was like, why would you stamp dots all over your project? But then I saw how it turned out, and I was amazed. Again, just incredible thought process that goes into the cards that she makes. So we'll do it once and twice. We'll try getting some out this way. And look through your stamp sets and see if you have any sets of dots or splotches that you might be able to use. They don't have to be this big. You could just stamp more depending on what you feel like doing. For that one, I didn't stamp up the entire stamp. I stamped off on my grid sheet, and then I just stamped half of it. But that is up to you whether you want the whole image or just part of it. I think I'll turn this around now and stamp the other way. And you will notice that this is a red rubber stamp, so I have removed the Stampin' Pierce mats from below my project. I think it may be stopping. The rain may be stopping, so that's good timing, because then I can get off to the grocery store and get that done. I hope you will give this kind of a project a try. You don't have to use the 12 by 12 inch paper. You're welcome and encouraged sometimes to just use 8.5 by 11, or you could even cut that down into quarter sheets that are 4 1/4 by 5.5 and try stamping different designs on each piece. I've seen Ruth do that. I've seen some other stampers have wonderful results with that. So be thinking about what might work for you. Or just get out your ink and stamps and give it a shot. That's what I like to do. Just experiment. And then you will find your own style for this method. I'm not too worried about the edges here because a lot of that is going to get cut off when we cut up our cardstock to make cards with it. And you'll see that sometimes when I'm doing the dottage here, I'm going along those starry sky branches that we just stamped a few minutes ago. just kind of extending that out a little bit from the wreath in both directions. I think that's about it. I just want to do one more just because. And that's that. As you can see, the finished project is fantastic. Not because I stamped it, but because I used Ruth's video as an inspiration and followed along. I used different stamp sets in many places, different colors than she chose as well, because I liked more of a bright blue, and she was using more of a dark blue, like Night of Navy and Starry Sky for some of the flowers, and I'm more of a bright gal. So we did that. Let me just pause for a minute and I'll come back with a template that'll show you how you can cut this into different pieces to make cards with.